Ladies and gentlemen, the heart of Azeroth is here. I was going to do a big fancy edited video with all the bells and whistles, but I just kind of want to talk to you guys about this thing and show it to you as I'm talking about it. This is like a way easier way of doing that. So the heart of Azeroth is here. A big deal to many of us. We considered it, or I did at least, and some people agreed with me, is 8.2 in general being like the hard reset on BFA. BFA has been a bit of a cluster so far, and 8.2 should hopefully bring with it a lot of the things that are supposed to entice us until the end of the expansion. All kinds of cool things like that to make us very much more interested in this system. Azerite armor is not dead, but will no longer be unlocking traits on Azerite armor and things like that. Instead, it's going to move to this thing. We knew it was coming. It is the necklace, the Heart of Azeroth, which has laid dormant upon our person for quite some time, with just arbitrary levels being grinded out in order to make it more powerful, apparently. And that is going to continue. We did know that. That wasn't going anywhere. As we can see here in front of us, this is what the Heart of Azeroth will kind of look like. We're going to get to test it on the PTR next week. I can't really wait for that. It should be exciting to get into this, because there is no fucking way that some of this stuff is going live. There is no fucking way. And if it does, okay, I mean, if you really want to destabilize the whole game, sure, I mean, if you want to, you can do that, I guess. It's not really what we wanted, though. I don't think. I think many of us were kind of hoping for something spec-based, not just class-based, but spec-based. Something simple, in fact. Something simple to work towards. Something that felt like we were doing something with our gameplay of our characters, because it's not advanced since level 100 at this point. I mean that clearly. Level 100. We don't get anything at 110 and nothing at 120. And we haven't really got anything since that's been of good topic of discussion that hasn't been nerfed anyway. We've had some moments of interesting things, but they've generally been nerfed to make them non-viable anymore. Let's take a look at the heart, and then we can really get into the nitty-gritty of it. We'll go through it, and then I'll kind of share my opinions on it. So here, this is the Heart of Azeroth. Now, I have spent the whole day... before we do this, Jeremy Fiesel. Perfect choice, please. Well done. The guy who presented the stream for Warcraft did a tremendous job. And a really good idea not to put Ian or Laura in front of there, because people have mixed feelings about them. Some people love them, some people hate them, and the entire discussion gets muddied. No one's really listening to what's being said, because they're so obsessed with fighting that guy in the comments as to whether or not this is genuine or whatever. And he did an awesome job. Even when things didn't go quite right, held it perfectly. It was really awesome to see that. Love that guy. Let's look at the Heart of Azeroth then. So I've spent all day... As you see, it's 8 p.m. now. I've had to go through like 7 hours of Sloot Q&A, various other websites that have all got access, who did get to go to the Creator Summit, who managed to share their information. Taliesin and Evertel's video was really good. And everyone's got a slightly different perspective. And I also sent out a lot of private messages to the guys who were there. And I've started getting that feedback over the course of the day. Mixed. Some people are really happy. Some people are less happy. Let's get into it then. So as you can see here, you're still going to be grinding out the heart. You see it's got a level on here. And you can see this level 65 slot is what we're going to call it. They're calling it slots. And what we have here is we're going to get this first. So the usual stuff will apply. We'll do a mini quest that will unlock the Heart Forge is what they're calling it. And then we'll get this big golden slot. And this is the major slot. It's the first of maybe many. This system, as you can clearly see, this celestial system that they're calling it, is clearly ready to expand should they want to, should they need to. It's entirely down to them what they do with it. But it's clearly something that can be built upon. And we're going to unlock this. Now, words that are going to become super important to you are major and minor. This is the major slot. You can see it comes with these Captain America style badges and sliders, and we've got a big golden ring. And then the two on the outer, one is unlocked already on this picture, the other one isn't, are the minor slots. So major and minor are a big deal. And into these slots, we're going to be putting in these essences. Now, these essences are not RNG, but they do have ranks. They will tell you on the UI, thanks to Sloot, he told us this, that if you mouse over it, it'll tell you exactly where you get it from. And they do have ranks which increase in power. So, for example, the one that comes from raiding You will get the green version from LFR. The blue version, which is slightly more powerful, will come from normal mode. The heroic version will be the epic version, yeah, and will be more powerful and might come with some alterations like more charges, things like that, depending on the type of essence it is. And then if you do the super hard content, for whichever it is, whether it's reputations or whatever it might be, the most difficult level will reward you with the legendary version, which has no more power than the heroic version. Once you get the heroic or the purple version, the epic version, from whichever source you decide to get it from, so if you're going for the PvP one, that's your best one, you're going to go for PvP. If your best one comes with reputation, once you get the purple one, that's as powerful as it will ever be. That's it. But then there is a legendary version for pushing past that, and that will give you a cool visual effects, cosmetic only. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. It's a cosmetic thing. It might actually cause more wars than anything. The cosmetic thing comes from like the elitist side. It feels a little special snowflake and people really have a problem with that. We'll see how that plays out down the line. It depends how good these effects are, right? We haven't seen any yet. So once you get your essences, you're then able to stick them into the unlocked slots you have on your heart. So important number one, they are making it impossible for you to hardcore grind this out. And the way they're going to do that, and they want to have full predictable knowledge of what powers players will have. They don't want it to be like Azerite armor, where we knew what Azerite armor levels the BOD raid was going to drop, and therefore we knew that months in advance, and guilds were setting like targets and making people grind out islands, grind out emissaries, grind out world quests, and all that kind of stuff to get as much AP as possible. They don't want that to happen again. So what they're going to do is make the ones they want you to have. So let's say before we really get balls deep into the Ashara raid, like certainly as Ashara is launching, they'll probably say something like, we're okay with you having the first golden trait, the major trait. We want you to have that immediately, and the minor slot. We don't want you to have this one. So they're going to make the gap between like 60 and 65 huge. Absolutely huge. They're going to make it so impossible to reach that they know you can't get it. And when they want you to get the third slot or the second minor slot, whichever way you want to call it, this level 65 one, they're going to make it very easy to get. That's the system they're putting in place. Personally, I would have just preferred a cap. I think it's simpler, makes more sense to people. A weekly cap, a monthly cap on how much Azerite you can get at a maximum. So people below that are uncapped. They can just keep going if they want to catch up on alts or whatever. But the guys at the very bleeding edge, because we are resetting everybody now. We're hitting that level 50 cap. That means everybody's come to a stop. So now we can control the gain. Blizzard doesn't want that. Most likely so that rewards don't dry up. They seemed okay with it at the start of BFA. They did mention that they're fine with people not doing emissaries and stuff anymore. They're okay with that. Yet they seem reluctant to say, okay, there's a cap on Azerite, which would make it far easier to control from both sides and also give people some sense of completion for the week, that they're comfortable. If they do it all on a Wednesday or a Tuesday, fine. If some people take till Thursday, they haven't missed out on anything. Some people take all the way till Monday. It's not a big deal because nobody's gone past them or anything like that. But that seems to be the way they're going with it. Now, these green slots, this is not an artifact weapon. Some people have compared it to the glyph system. I see where you're coming from. It's basically the same UI, but I'm not interested in what the UI looks like. There's only so many different ways you can present this kind of progression system. I think it looks quite nice, but I don't care. It's what it does that interests me. Now, Slooty has confirmed that as of right now, these green nodes that you pick up along the way, they're not going to be stuff like you saw on the artifact weapon, which was like Blue Flame Special, Fireball cast time reduction, crit damage increase, things like that, that were nice, but nothing to be, super excited about. But they were still nice. They're less nice than that. They're just stamina. As of now, they're just stamina. That's it. So you get a little bit more stamina when you get this one. Then you get a minor slot. That's good. But then you get stamina. Then you get another minor slot. Stamina. Right? So, I mean, that almost feels like arbitrary for the real sake of having something there to make it look more celestial or to get this hexagonal shape correct or something. I don't know. But it seems odd anyway. It seems almost like a meme of arbitrariness. Like, we must have something, so let's give them stamina. Not that stamina's a necessary negative thing, depending on how much it is, but still. Okay. In terms of character progression, stamina's not really the one I track, if I'm being honest with you. It's not the one I track. Anyway. Let's get into this. So you're going to be collecting these essences, and collecting is a word they threw around quite a lot. They seem to want to use this system to encourage collectors especially to go out and get things done. In fact, collecting seems to be a big thing that they're going for right now. We are going to talk in a different video about everything else of 8.2. This thing's so important to me that I wanted to do a whole video on it, but we'll talk about everything else, and especially mounts. They were so big on the mounts, and there are actually some really good developments there, but we'll talk about that in the next video. But they do kind of want you to go out and collect these, and collect the whole set, so to speak. It does raise some questions before we get even into the nitty-gritty of this system. One, if we're going out and collecting the legendary versions of all of these, almost like Hearthstone card deck backs, they're not going to be usable next expansion, right? Now, we should have this system for quite some time, so we will get a reasonable use out of it, but it's certainly something that, similar to, unlike artifact weapons where the skins are still usable to this day, this looks like a system that is definitely dead in the next expansion. Unless they decide to roll with it forever, which I really hope they don't. It's not the best system. In fact, I am somewhat shocked at the lack of interest in the system. I think at the moment, everybody's a little starry-eyed and dazzled with the just amount of stuff they announced for 8.2. So there's something in there for everybody to be excited about. And this kind of got swept under the rug a little bit. Like, even during the presentation, it was a very minor part of it. As they then were like, but here's Mechagon, and here's Nashata, and here's all these mounts, and there's going to be a crab, and there's going to be a painting, and a robot, and all this kind of stuff. They kind of like front-loaded all that, and they were like, and there's the there'll be a blog post later. Moving back to big cool mounts then. That's kind of how I read into it, because it's not the best. It's not the best. If I had have gone to the summit, I certainly would have looked at this and gone... So there's nothing class-based, and some people are going to go, there is something class-based. Kind of, but not really. So there's nothing class-based. We've gone generic again, kind of like what we did with Azerite armor, and a lot of it seems just like normal on-use trinkets for the most part, but they're really powerful. Like, really, really powerful. There's stuff that's come here in these essences, and as far as I could tell... Talking to many people, we have seen all of them. There's not going to be many more than this. Let's have a little look at some of these traits. I'm just going to stick these in front of you. Now, you'll notice that they're role-based. They're generic and role-based. That means that these are DPS ones. They're for all DPSs. Not for caster DPS or range or melee DPS or anything like that. These are just DPS. There are tank ones. They're the same thing for all tanks. And the healer ones are the same thing. So they're role-based, which means they have to be generic. This inherently comes with a lot of problems, because similar to what we talked about with the Crucible of Storms loot, if they have to apply this to like every tank, some tanks are obviously going to benefit more from certain items than other ones. That's the nature of the beast. In fact, let's bring an obvious one up. If I may. Where is this? Where's the blog? Was I on the blog? I'm crazy. There it is. Yep. Let's go into this. Let's go down to... oh, there it is. I'm sorry. I'm being a silly sausages. Okay, let's... The Vision of Perfection, okay? So this is a tanking one, okay? Thank you once again to Sloot, who took pictures of all of them on his phone. There were a couple that were grayed out, but the tooltips were still there, so they are still on here. This one is what people are calling the class-specific one, and essentially, the Vision of Perfection appears to be, and Taliesin and Evertal talked about it as well, is just the major cooldown reduction essence. So it affects everybody, right? Let's read what it does here. The major power, and this is the important part of this. So, as I said, there's major and minor slots. Every single essence has two components, a major and a minor. You can only utilize the major if you put that essence into the golden central major slot. That's the only way. Now, you can then put the essences into the other two slots, so you will have 3 essences total, but the 2 that go into the minor slots won't have the major component. They're just the minors. However, the one that's in the major gives you both the major and the minor of that essence. Okay, so if I put the Focusing Iris into the Major slot, I get both the Major and the Minor of the Focusing Iris. If I put the Hardened Obsidian Essence into the Minor slot, I don't get the Major, but I do get the Minor. So what we're going to get is 1 Major and 3 Minors. That's how it's going to be for now, until they decide to extend it or do whatever with it. So I hope we're all clear on that. So the Vision of Perfection is the only essence we've seen that doesn't come with an on-use effect. Every other one has an on-use. As you can see here, the Speaker's Boon has an on-use Major Power with a 2-minute cooldown. This Healing One Artifice of Time comes with an Major on-use 4-minute cooldown. The Lifebinder's Invocation has a 2.2 second cast and a 3-minute on-use cooldown. These will be spells that will be dragged into your bars. I have to ask this question. Why... Because I know it doesn't work this way. Why didn't they just create a single spell, which was something like Empower Heart or Draw Power from Heart? One spell we could have dragged to the bars, and that's it. And when you change whatever your major is, it activates the effect, right? You could have had the same animation, grabbing the heart and, you know, doing something with it. It would have been quite nice. Instead of us, I imagine once we're swapping into here, and they have said this is going to be like the talent system. So as long as you're rested or used a tome, you can swap these freely at will. And once you've learnt them, they're just in your spellbook, like glyphs. Basically the same thing. So you can just drop them in and out. So why not just make one spell that uses the major of whichever one you currently have? And then later on, because we're going to have 2, we just have another spell as well, just to save, you know, needless making of macros and swapping spells around your spell bar, or maybe it will just pick up and swap. We'll find out in the PTR. Anyway, so the Vision of Perfection is the only one that isn't an on-use for its major. But what is the major? Your spells and abilities have a random chance to activate Avenging Wrath for 8 seconds, right? So... As this is Prot Paladin's point of view, this one. As many Prot Paladins will tell you, that's really powerful. Having Avenging Wrath does a lot of cool things for you. When the Vision of Perfection activates, the cooldown of Avenging Wrath is reduced by 15%. So obviously that's percentage-based, the larger the cooldown. So if you've just used Avenging Wrath and it's on its maximum amount of cooldown, the more effective that is. The shorter the cooldown, the less effective it is. And the minor for it is reduces the cooldown of Avenging Wrath by 16.5%. That's just like universally reducing it. And increase your versatility by 419. When you activate Avenging Wrath, immediately heal for 5% of your maximum health. Now, this Vision of Perfection is not a Paladin only thing. Like, the one we're seeing now is the Paladin version. But if I was on, say, a Prot Warrior, replace the word Avenging Wrath with Avatar. If I was on a Brewmaster, replace it with Fortifying Brew. I think Saluti said on a Blood DK it was Vamp Blood for some reason. And so that's exactly what I'm saying. Like, for some classes, this is way more powerful than it is for others. Now, why is that a problem, you might say? Well, the problem is when you're using very generic, all over the place traits that are just for tanks, if it's really powerful for one class, like too powerful, then you have to nerf it eventually. And that affects everybody else who might not be getting anywhere near that benefit from it. And that's always the issue with stuff that's supposed to go across entire roles, because those roles are really not uniform, like in terms of how powerful those classes are across them, and sort of like the things that benefit them are all wildly different. Makes it very, very awkward, which is why, generally speaking, spec-based stuff is far easier to manage and usually more fun because it modifies something very unique to that spec. So very surprised they went with this because it clearly has a lot of problems in terms of balancing later down the line. We could say very simply, like, Paladins get an absurd amount of benefit from this essence, whereas, I don't know, Brewmasters don't get anything from it. And the other traits, because, you know, they're all generic across the board, aren't that good either. So if Paladins become overpowered because of this, and other tanks have no choice but to use this, because although it's not that powerful, it's still the best. We've all been there, right? They have to nerf it, and that really screws it up for everybody else. Whereas it's now kind of balanced for Prot Paladins, it's dead for everything else. And that really sucks. That really sucks, because there is some gameplay element to this in having your cooldowns up and managing that and knowing it's happening and things like that. So, yeah, really surprised they went with the role idea, because the role, like DPS, encompasses how many specs? It's a lot, right? It encompasses a lot of specs, which all have different benefits and stuff. One thing I will say, which is good, is that this system looks to me, contrary to what some people have said, if it remains as is, looks like something you will want to be swapping all the time. I think it's probably time that Blizzard really considers just a simple preset menu to come with this. Of if we're expected, and it might even encourage people to do this more, because we know that a lot of the player base never change their talents regardless. Is if they really want to encourage us to swap these around, which you will do. I'll demonstrate that for you in a minute. You will want to be swapping these around. Then some presets now, instead of having to go through the talents, then having to change into a different UI to the Heart of Azeroth, to then having to swap the essences and stuff. I would love, similar to gear sets, if we could just say, you know, this is my Mythic Plus setup, this is my World Quest talent setup, and Heart of Azeroth setup, you know. There are already people who are swapping Azerite armor at the same time. Like, we're having to change our stuff a lot in a lot of micromanagey ways, rather than, like, presetting it out. Like, I've got all the stuff. Let me just preset. It's a very simple quality of life improvement, I think. Well, that's just me. So let's take a look at some of these. Now, I did say at the start, there is no fucking way some of these are going live. There is no way. I would be amazed if they let this happen. And I think I said the phrase, destabilize the game. On the face of it, this stuff isn't very interesting. Let's be honest, right? It's not very interesting. Let's have a quick look at one of them. Let's go to a DPS one. I think more people will relate to that. So then we go to healing and damage. Okay, so let's look at the focusing iris. That's the one we were talking about before. So the focusing iris is major use. So if I was to put the focusing iris in its major slot, I would have this extra ability on my bars, which is the focusing iris. A 1.2 second cast that has a 1.5 minute cooldown. It can be used while moving. And the major power, the major thing I'm adding to my toolbars is expelling energy outwards to some enemies in front of me. Like a flamethrower, or like an acid spitter, like a trinket that's already in the game that comes from the Snack Temple. So we already kind of have this ability. I mean, I'm not bad-mouthing, I'm just saying we already have this. This is the same thing we've seen a number of times. It's not creative, it's not very interesting. It was actually something that was so powerful they nerfed it. So if they nerfed it at the beginning, I remember I released a warrior video where I was doing like 80k DPS during the BFA alpha with this trinket. I forget the name of it. You know the one. It sprays poison. And now they kind of redone it into this. And that's just a trinket, right? I mean, that's what it is. Let's be honest. It's just a trinket. So it's not something that anybody's going to lose their cum over, right? We're not going to need to change our underwear because of this thing. But I also get this minor power, which is every 2 seconds, the Heart of Azeroth absorbs nearby latent Azerite energy and increases my haste by 29, stacking up to 10 seconds. So 290 haste. Fine. Good. While at 10 stacks of the focusing iris, your Heart of Azeroth has a high chance to blast your target with a bolt of Azerite energy, dealing 6,000 fire damage. Another one of those things that we've talked about several times, which is it's entirely random. There's a reasonable chance, similar. We actually tested this, remember, with the Crucible of Storms loot that does something extremely similar to this, that we didn't even know it had happened. Like, we couldn't visually see it, even though we were sat waiting for it to happen. We had to use third-party software to even check it was working, because we can't tell it happens. Okay. Not exciting. Not exciting, not grabbing me by the balls here. I'm getting an extra trinket. And the more cynical people I spoke to today have literally been like, because I've been going like, nobody seems to care about this. I checked around nearly every class Discord. Most people are talking about this one that we'll get to in a minute. No fucking way this is going live. But as someone said to me, it's like, it's really hard to be excited about a trinket I've had like 12 times. Now, what I will say is I think that's very cynical, because there are some things in here which are really good. I think we should look at those things, because if we're not getting class stuff until 9.0, which seems to be the message, they're not going to do anything class-based until 9.0, which is when they can kind of commit to how they're going to do things. So Ian has said in recent interviews, look, we fucked it up. Classes at the foundation level are really bad. We know. It's time we started adding more stuff into the game at the foundation level, which is just the class naked with its talents and its spells. We need to add more stuff in there, and we'll deal with the consequences later. They're not ready to do that now. Now, I somewhat understand that. Okay, I somewhat get it. I still think it would have been nice to not do this. I mean, this kind of works, and there are some good things in here. Don't get me wrong. I'm not shitting all over this. There are some good things in here. But it's not stellar. It's not fireworks, right? It's nothing like that, where it could have been something way simpler, way easier to balance. But just spec-based, that would have been a little bit more interesting. Even if it was something you're kind of planning for the next expansion, just giving it us now would have been a nice thing. And also just easier on the eyes, I would think. Similar to what happened with the expansion to the artifact system in Legion when Concordance arrived. Remember, we got that extra little ring of stuff. So it had 1 more major and then 4 minors to go with it. That was cool. That was cool, right? That was really nice addition to gameplay. Modified some things. Hell, Frost Mage's got freezing rain in there. How I miss you. How I miss you. Anyway. Okay, so let's look at another DPS one that I just can't believe that this is going to not be nerfed into the ground. So let's look at Blood of the Enemy. This is the one that people are really talking about because they're like, really? Good players especially are like, no way, dude. Really? Because you're giving me a nuclear weapon here. Why? Why are you giving me a nuclear weapon? And it does feel that Blizzard is somewhat convinced that what players really want is more power. Just to be way more powerful. I don't think that's where we are. I disagree. I think we're just after more fun. And fun doesn't denote power. Like, there's not an intrinsic link there. Fun can come from all kinds of... Like, I would look at spells like Leap of Faith, Heroic Leap, right? And I'd say they're really fun additions to those classes. Like, really fun. There's nothing powerful about them whatsoever. I would say the same about Demonic Gateways, right? Shadow Step. All these kinds of things that are... or even Cloak of Shadows, which is a defensive and a very cool one. But the nature of how it works and the visuals that come with it, and it's powerful, but it's not like nuclear weapon powerful like this thing is. So let's read this, and good players are going to go. So if I was to put the Blood of the Enemy into my major slot, I would gain this 1.5 minute cooldown where the Heart of Azeroth erupts violently, deals 40,000 physical damage to enemies within 12 yards. You gain 25% critical strike chance against the targets for 15 seconds. Not finished. Increase your critical hit damage by 35% for 15 seconds. And the minor power that comes with it as well, on top, your critical strikes grant a stack of Blood of the Enemy. Upon reaching 25 stacks, you gain 1,000 haste for 12 seconds. 1,000? Each stack of Blood of the Enemy grants 29 critical strikes, so once it gets rolling, it gets rolling. We haven't seen it in action yet, so maybe it's got like a 2 procs an hour or something. Maybe. I doubt it. Blood of the Enemy has a 25% chance of only consuming 15 stacks, so it'll erupt at 25 and give you 1,000 haste, but it also has a 25% chance of just restarting at 15. So you don't need to like hope for them first couple of crits to get the thing going. It'll just keep going. What? Why? Why are you giving this to players? Like, what the fuck? And you don't understand how powerful this is. You must understand how problematic giving good players really predictable, certainly on-use DPS windows has been for Blizzard. Like, it's been horrific. And when they give us several of them, bro, do we really want to retread this again? Do we? Do we want to go down this road? Because let me tell you what I'm going to do. I'm a Moonkin, right? I don't think I even am the most beneficial here, but I'm probably up there. So I'm a Moonkin. Let's say I pop my major DPS cooldown, Celestial Alignment. I'm also going to pair that up, obviously, without question, with this Blood of the Enemy on use. So I'm going to go into my most powerful cooldown. I'm going to pair that up, which is something some players don't even do. Like, still to this day, some people do not understand the power of stacking cooldowns. I'm going to do that with 25% extra crit, with a bonus to critical strike rating. I'm going to stack potions on top of that. I'm going to line it up with things like Bloodlust, right? And I want to be clear here. There's nothing particularly exciting here other than the fact that I'm absolutely going to annihilate things. Annihilate things using this. And I also have a really nice window because it only lasts 15 seconds. That means I can really play around with this. Like, I don't have to use it at the very start. I can wait until I have things like Enchants proc, until other things that are like random that come from Azerite armor, they all proc. I can wait for those windows and still fit it into my DPS cooldowns. And that's not easy to manage. That's going to require some setting up of some third-party add-ons to make that happen. But I'm definitely doing that if you let me do that. And that's going to be really hard to not destabilize the game. Because there are going to be a lot of players like me who are going to do that. And then any player who's not doing that is going to be dramatically further behind. Like way, way further behind. Because that is obscene. And then, guess what else I'm going to do? Later down the fight, I'm going to be monitoring these stacks of Blood of the Enemy. I'm going to be watching them. I'm going to have a little add-on that tells me when they're up to a certain amount of stacks. And I'm a Moon Kid as well. So I have a trait called Arcanic Pulsar that I can manage completely. It's under my discretion. And I can use that to go back into Celestial Alignment or Incarnation, whatever I want to do, which is really powerful. And I can activate it whenever I want. Because I need to fire 9 spells, 9 Star Surges. It's just a Moonkin spell for those of you who don't know what it is. And on the 9th one, I will go into Incarnation. So I could track that. I do that right now. And I wait. I bank for it. I prepare to go into this Incarnation, and I utilize it more than most of the player base. All the top end players are doing it anyway, but more than most of the player base. You're now telling me that I can now pair this up with a massive haste boost on top of that and squeeze even more out of it with Shooting Stars trait as well? Okay. I mean, if we want it to go that way, we'll do that, but I have no idea how they intend to balance content around this. Now, I did speak to Just Wait on it, and it's like, well, they don't balance content around the very best players anyway. True, but this also means, like, what percentage of players do you expect to be utilizing this thing to its maximum potential? Because the more of them you do, the bigger... I mean, it's really extraordinary to me that this is even allowed to be written down. I would expect this to be nerfed into the ground. But if it doesn't, okay, sure. Now, let's move to some of the more interesting ones where I said you're going to be swapping these things around. I think this is kind of the right direction to go in. This is the much better direction for me. Is some of these clearly work better in certain conditions than other ones. And depending on which level of the game you're playing in. So if we go to the tanking ones, and we look at this one, which basically screams as the counter to Necrotic, but only in certain instances. So it's called Sphere of Suppression. So I read a lot about tanks who tank for pugs, and they are often trying to do everything themselves. And if they can't do everything themselves, they look to where the grass is greener. Oh, well, warriors are dealing with this thing. Vengeance Demon Hunters are dealing with these things. I can't, as a Guardian Druid, I can't do the things those guys are doing. It's unfair. They should change things. Now, the correct answer to comments like this is that actually there's 5 of you in that environment. If you're dealing with something like Necrotic, there's 5 of you in there. And there is like no combination of 5 players in the game that can't deal with this. If your monk doesn't know how to leg sweep, or your demon hunter doesn't know how to use Chaos Nova, or your frost mage doesn't know how to use Blizzard to slow everything and buy you time, or to Cone of Cold everything and make them really, really slow. There's so many combinations of things that can help you out because it's a team-based environment. It's not a you versus them environment. It's a team-based environment. You're supposed to work together, and practically every combination, we're not looking at the MDI with 2 rogues and things like that, every combination of players can come up with a system that can deal with Necrotic very effectively, right? But some people don't play that way, as we well know. Some people do play this kind of solo, lone wolf, I'm the hero type of thing. So those guys would get great benefit from this. If I was a tank and I was going into the pug world, I wasn't sure the kind of guys I'm going to be playing with. Are they going to help me? Are they not? Are they going to recognize when I'm trying to kite mobs and things? I don't know, dude. And it's Necrotic, and this is a week where tanks take the week off. We see those posts all the time. So Necrotic, not tanking, don't trust my group, blah, 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 blah. But now you could put in a Sphere of Suppression. What does it do? If I put it in, I gain a new major ability every 45 seconds, which unleashes a heavy pulse of suppressive energy, reducing the movement speed of all enemies within 15 yards by 70%, and reducing their damage done by 10% for 8 seconds. That's huge. Not only that, if I activate and it does hit an enemy, my movement speed is increased by 50% for 8 seconds. Bye. And this is all within every tank's control. That's pretty awesome, right? But the story doesn't end there. That's great if you're doing a pug tank, right? But the minor of this, enemies who melee you will attack 8% slower, so less stacks of Necrotic in general, and you gain 434 haste and 15% increased attack speed for 7 seconds. And according to Sloot, no internal cooldown. That's mental! For resource generation, we have this all the time. That is mental. That is absolutely mental. So let's say this. If I'm a pug tank and I'm dealing with randoms and I can't trust them, I might want to take the Sphere of Suppression as a major, right? I want that major AoE slow in the runaway. But if I'm not in that scenario, and I'm playing with friends who communicate, and I can say, can you stun, please? Things like that, then I don't really gain anything from getting this major. So I can swap around my essences, which is the nature of the system. That's the way it's supposed to work. Because I still want the minor. I still want the minor. I don't need the major, but I really do want the minor because that thing is nutty as fuck. So I absolutely do want that. So I can then pick and choose that combination to go in there. And I can say something like, well, instead of taking this major, I'm with a group of players who can coordinate. And actually, my DPS is now more important. So I can then pick on dealing more damage. I can choose a more offensive major trait to go with. And sometimes you're going to be in the middle and you're going to be able to pick different things. So from that perspective, the system kind of works. And that looks like it's going to be more interesting. I don't think, although I hope and pray people don't stick with just the same essences all the time, because if you start looking at some of these combos, they're not exciting. They're not exciting. But that doesn't mean there isn't some gameplay elements there. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't be messing around with them, because despite the fact that they're not exciting, they're really, really powerful. It's an interesting one here, this Null Dynamo, right? So let's say we're going to do a dungeon or a raid boss that has more magic damage than anything else. Well, now we have a Mage Power, which is we can put the Mage Power in and get a 2.5 minute cooldown, which absorbs 200,000 magic damage for 10 seconds and instantly removes all harmful magic, curse, poison, and disease effects on you. I'm somewhat reminded of the trinket that I believe came from one of the old world PvP areas. It was such an incredibly powerful tank trinket, but I think it was on a 30-second cooldown or something crazy, which did something similar. It just like blocked all magic damage. It was so good. So good. I'm very much reminded of that. But the minor power, let's say we don't have that big blast of magic damage that's coming in. It doesn't do like a dragon's breath or a water beam, given that Rise of Ashara is coming. But we could still pick up this minor, which is every 15 seconds gain a null barrier, so like a Pride has, which is just for magic damage. That's cool as fuck, bro. That's really cool. Like the amount of damage that'll prevent throughout a Mythic Plus or some raid encounters, some trash packs. That's pretty wacky. I know it says only 40,000, but it's 40,000 every 15 seconds. And some fights run for quite a while. Taking that edge off every single magic attack can be a big deal. Let me tell you, somebody who's tanked for 10 years, I'll tell you, that could be a pretty big deal in the right scenario. And that's the point. You can swap and change these around. You could do whatever you want with them. And that's what I kind of like about the system. I'm not a big fan of the traits themselves. They seem way too powerful and boring for the most part. They're not very interesting. They certainly are better than the original Azerite traits. They look kind of similar, but ultimately it's kind of a choice of trinkets. But what I am looking forward to is picking through my combination of minors. Like the major will be the dictator, but if I want to swap in a major essence, that probably means I need to swap some other ones. So I do expect to be swapping these around a fair bit. Now that will vary on a class by class basis and so on and so forth, and that's absolutely fine. My concerns about this: why did we go with this generic role-based thing? It's going to be so awkward to balance without nerfing these into the ground. That's what bothers me, is that it might launch, like 8.2 might come out with these things being in the game as they are and things being really wild for a time. We know they're going to allow these in PvP. Okay, I guess. Like, if you read through these, and the link is obviously below, some of them are really wacky. But they're not that interesting. I would ask Blizzard, is the focus on... Do you think what players really crave is just being powerful? Because I don't think that's the case. I really don't. I disagree with that mentality. I would rather not have this. I'll be honest with you. Like, I already know, like the one we were talking about before, the Blood of the Enemy or whatever it's called. I already know that I will abuse the shit out of that trait. Out of this. I'm going to abuse the fuck out of that. Like, and some of the other DPS ones, I will abuse the fuck out of them. I really will. To great effect. Fine. Like, I'm okay with doing that. It's something we've done since forever. You give us a trinket like Whispers in the Dark or something like that, then, you know, we can do weird and wonderful things with them. And that's kind of fun. It's pretty fun. But we still need... The gameplay of the base toolkit still needs to get better. I understand why it's not there. I do worry that we're going to go the way of the Azerite armor, where the really powerful stuff, like, you know, we had things like Thunderous Blast or Blast... What was the Fire Mage one that you could stack up? Blast something, I forget. Once they got too powerful, Blizzard crushed them to the point where they were like, damn it. And several other traits have gone the same way, where they're just too powerful, so they get crushed, and then they're not that interesting because they're like weak versions of stuff. So in general, I wish that we hadn't gone down this road. I can understand why, though. I think that's important to say. I can understand why. My concerns are, one, this drives such an enormous wedge, further than it already is, between the good players and the average player, that it's not a wedge that I think needs to be made wider by any means. Like, it's already so big, and maybe Blizzard's thought process is it's not salvageable at this point, so it's okay, but we're mid-expansion. It's still patch 8.1 on the live servers. We're not near the end of the expansion, and at the end of Legion, it was really bad. The gulf was huge. If Blizzard's like okay with it, fine, I guess. Like, okay, we'll go with it. If you're giving it us, I'm certainly not going to turn down a nuclear weapon should you throw it my way. That's fine. But I don't think that gulf needs to be made any bigger, where the leap to correct it. This is my problem, because you might say to yourself, Preacher, isn't it fine that better players move further ahead than players who aren't trying? Yes, to an extent, right? The gulf shouldn't be like, as we saw at Legion, it's like 7 to 8 times some people in similar gear. It gets that big with all the multipliers. If you count up all the multipliers in the game right now, let's do the list. Fine. 2 Azerite rings per piece of armor. So there's 6, right? That you either have the good ones, and if you've got the best ones, you utilize them correctly. So that's 6 levels or 6 layers of stuff to control and manage. Then we get another 3 on top of that. That's another 3 layers on top of that from the next ring. So Heed My Call, Swirling Sands, things like that. Then you also have things like weapon enchants. A lot of people not enchanting shit anymore because they think they might get a Titanforged or Warforged weapon very soon. Like, they get so much loot, they don't bother enchanting anymore. It's actually a problem in the game for a lot of players. Then on top of that, what else do we have? We have things that we can control, right? So we have like another 3. Most of these things are passive. The miners are mostly passive. So another 3 miners on top of that. So that's 6 to start with. 3 more, that's 9. Enchants, 10. Another 3 now, that's 13. Then you add on top things you can control. A potion, 14. The gap grows wider. Potions, Bloodlust. Usage of correct cooldowns, which is an enormous multiplier, and using them at the right time. It's like 15 things. Then we're going to add in another 3 more. It's like 18 things, right, from this system. And then another major on top. It's like 19 elements. And the guys who do it correctly get such an enormous advantage from doing it correctly that the gulf is so big. I don't think it's necessary, because I don't think that's what the good players or the weaker players are really looking for. I think they were looking for some class-based stuff that would have been kind of fun. But whether or not Blizzard's under the impression that it's just power people want, this is the right way to go about it, because some of this stuff is crazy. I'm not sure if it's a good idea to give every healer a major single-target defensive cooldown on top of the ones they already have. Which some of these stuff are. They have like a 20% damage reduction on a single target, which is just crazy. Like, every healer's going to have that? Like, how are they going to balance this? How much damage are bosses and things going to do while these options are available in the game? That's my concern. My other that's concern number 1 is the gulf and how balancing is going to work. I mean, those are 2 things especially. The third thing is, are these right, or are these to tease us? And this is what I would have asked, because these are just way too powerful. Like, some of these are crazy. So are these to tease people, to draw them in? I guess we'll find out next week on the PTR when we can play around with them, but on the face of it, come on, you can't be serious with some of this stuff, right? I mean, I'm looking at the faces of the guys I've talked to, and I saw this in Slooty's video where he was reading some of this stuff out, and the chat was going, what? And he's going, yeah. Because it doesn't feel correct. Like, certainly if you have a deep understanding of this stuff, some of this stuff really doesn't feel correct. It feels crazy. It really does. But we'll see how that goes. We'll see how that goes. All right, guys. So that's my thoughts so far. I have concerns. I'll wait to play it before drawing judgment. It's definitely better than the Azerite system. Not quite what I hoped for sure, but I don't think it's as bad as people seem to make it out. There is definitely some potential for some really cool combinations here. There really is. So we'll see how it plays when I get my hands on it next week. Thank you very much for listening. I'll see you again. Bye-bye.